there's money in burning buildings, right? So everybody's running out of the burning building. You should run into the burning building, and a lot of that's something that a lot of people in the investment world will tell you as well, right? Like when everybody tells you a company's failing, that's when you should buy it. And so, like the Vikings are 4-0. I might have bet them to miss the playoffs this morning. It's
How dare
just,
you? Hello and welcome to another episode of Behind the Lines, now powered by Pinnacle and the only podcast purifying the sports betting industry. Remember to like, download, subscribe, follow us on all the socials at inplayLIVE. I'm your host, Shane Mercer. As always, we've got Andrew Pace, the founder of inplayLIVE, a community of like-minded sports bettors dedicated to long-term success. And today we've got John Wilson joining us, better known in the inplayLIVE community as GosuThune, the great Gosu himself, joining the show. John, how you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you guys?
Good, man. Great to have you on. So on today's show, we're going to be looking at ways to take a long shot and best ways to butter books, but also a little more elaboration on the big announcement that we brought you last week. As I mentioned off the top of the show, this podcast is now powered by Pinnacle, and the inplayLIVE community is going to be getting more ingrained with Pinnacle and Pinnacle more with us. And Pace, you've got a few details you want to share about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Pinnacle obviously saw something special in what it is that we're doing at inplayLIVE. And for me, it's always been, some sports books have bombarded us from time to time, asking us to promote them. So most recently was a story at Bet Bash. A bookie contacted me. And, he's like, oh, I heard about your community. Like, we basically want to be taking everyone's action, privately, paperhead style. And I think it lasted maybe like a week or two where, the guy, I think he blocked me at this point. Right. So we've been bombarded by some sports books, and we're very much of the mindset of working with the sports books that actually do have stuff in place for the player, and Pinnacle's obviously at the top of the list. Now, the best part of all this has been, Pinnacle, knows who we are and all that kind of stuff, but I'm starting to get some texts from some guys, some guys with some information that know stuff. And I'm just going to leave it at that. And I think it can really benefit the whole community. So really pumped to have Pinnacle on board. You can head over to pinnacle.com/inplayLIVE and start to get some more of the details of what's going on and how Pinnacle can benefit you as a sports bettor.
That's awesome. And for anybody out there who doesn't know, and I know that there are some people who aren't maybe totally familiar with Pinnacle, but Pinnacle will not limit winners. They won't kick us off their platform. They'll allow us to play there forever. Yes, there might be a limit on the market you're playing, and depending on what kind of market that is will determine what the limit is. But you will never be limited as an individual. And so, that's what we've been talking a lot on the show about recently, is being limited at the individual betting level or the individual bettor level. That's what all of the soft books do. That's their model. But Pinnacle doesn't operate that way. One of the few books in the world that operates on the sharp model. And so we will never get limited. You will never get limited at Pinnacle. So it's a place where they let winners play. And that's why, they align with us.
So Shane, since you brought that up, I think it's a really good segue to one of the topics. I know you're going to bring up the article, but I do just want to say I went off to this start for football this season that was just like, felt like waving a magic wand to an extent. It's like, oh my God, this is the best football season yet. And then I started running into book issues, and everyone that, kind of follows my journey, our masterclass, our primers, all that kind of stuff, they know that, we have ways to sort of best handle or best approach a sports book that is going to limit you, and then what you can get out of that sports book as a result of knowing that. And we're recording this on September 30th, so as it's playing, we're into October. But we've had 4 weeks of NFL behind us here. I have been limited on a book per day on average in September. So we're talking 30 books, right? Like, boom, gone. And I think John can probably say something similar. And when you're dealing with that separately of like, hey, it's a good problem, right? you're making money, the books don't want you there. It's a good problem. Well, these sports books, when they're doing this, and obviously this has been a theme of the podcast over the course of time since we started, but when they're doing this, they do not allow for any leg room on how they can improve. Meanwhile, I can remember firsthand, it was the first playoff season of NHL playoffs at inplayLIVE, and Pinnacle had a line that they just shouldn't have had. And I called it out on a live stream. We hit them. They paid us. They didn't limit the player. They changed the market. So with great sports bettors comes great information. And Pinnacle wants that information. Yes, you could be like, Pace, why are you doing this? Well, the other side of it is they're letting us play there, and they have the lowest VIG on main market lines. And that is what I go, hey, if I can't beat them, that's me as a player. But if I can beat them, I know I can continue to play. And all the conversation with them, it's all about volume. It's all about volume. If we can sit there, I have a screenshot on my device right now that shows our players. I can't see players' balances, but shows how inplayLIVE has done using them since we signed up. If anyone has signed up, we've made money off them, and they want more of it. And I think that is so cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's the way a sportsbook should be. And like you said, they're taking those bets and using that as information to sharpen their lines. And on top of it, too, you mentioned they have the lowest VIG out there, or among the lowest VIG. And so when you go and look at their odds, you're going to see that, hey, the odds on this main market game are actually way better than a lot of the soft books out there. And so, for anybody out there that is like, putting together their pregame parlays or their teasers or that sort of stuff, there's a lot of good benefits to do it at a soft book that we can get into in a moment, but you're going to get better odds at Pinnacle. So just a suggestion, if you are doing that kind of thing, and not that I'm encouraging that, but there can be a place and time for that. So why don't we get into some of that? So article out over the weekend in Bloomberg, big, business publication. And the title of the article was a bit sort of, got me laughing a little bit, but I can understand it. Anyway, title is "Sports Betting Apps Are Even More Toxic Than You Thought." Okay. So, click on the article and I read through. And what's interesting about it is that it actually starts off by having some quotes from some professional sports bettors. And these are sort of well-known pro sports bettors that are out there. Pace, you might have met them at Bet Bash. I won't put their names out there, but they're in the article if anybody wants to go and have a look. And one of the things that they brought up was how they need to act like degen sports bettors so that they can get a longer leash at these soft books. So they talk about, hey, when I sign up, I bet the home team, from wherever they are, whatever jurisdiction they're in, or whatever buddy account maybe that they're using. And, they bet the home team, and maybe they do some home team parlays. But then they did a couple of other things that I thought were kind of interesting. And I want to get your sort of opinions on these other sort of tactics that they're using. One of the things that they would do is deposit, make a few bets, maybe if they win a few, then they withdraw the whole balance and then redeposit again and go through that process of depositing, pulling the money out, and then redepositing, and sort of this process, so that they say that it makes it look like, they can't get enough, right? That they just can't not have money in the account. They want to pull their money out when they win, but then they can't not have it back in the account, so they go to deposit it again. And of course, these are pro sports bettors who are doing this as a tactic to get a longer leash at the book. Another thing that they did was setting an alarm and waking themselves up in the middle of the night, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., to place a bet, just to get action in on something, so that it makes it look like, they can't get through the night without placing a wager. Right? So that they are trying to make themselves look like problem gamblers, right? And so
oh my God.
This is how the article sort of set it up, with this at the top of the story, like, here's what these pro sports bettors are doing, right? And it works. And this is the kind of thing sports books want players to do. And that's where it's sort of the toxic element comes in, right? That, hey, this is what the sports books are actually looking for. And the kinds of people that they think they can take advantage of are the people who are doing these ridiculous, degen terrible gambling habits. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. What do you guys think about those buttering tactics? Would you try them yourselves? Do you think they work? What do you find works best for priming a book? That so that you get the most out of it. And maybe John, we'll go over to you first since you're our guest.
You go ahead.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of those, obviously, a lot of those things make sense. Betting parlays and betting like the local team, and I always think like taking the boosts that they offer. All of those like just sucker things, because a lot of those too also, like, I think if you just took the boosts, you'd probably do okay because they're boosting them, even though they're vigged because they're same game parlays a lot of the time. But they're more so designed to train you to make bad decisions. They're training you to have a behavioral pattern that's negative value to you, right? So whether you win or lose those boosts, there's a reason they have a max bet on them, right? They're really just trying to get you to start doing it without the boost. But I think they like when they see that. So I mean, those things make sense. And I mean, I know a lot of my friends who are just casual bettors. They deposit on Saturday, bet college and NFL, and then they withdraw on Monday. And that's how they operate. So I agree that definitely, at least for how regulated sports books, the ease of using your bank or PayPal or whatever, it's just so much easier to get money in and out. There's a lot of people who don't understand cryptocurrency for using offshore books or waiting for a check in the mail or something to get paid. So I think that especially on the regulated side, that's something that I know a lot of people definitely do. So that makes sense to me.
Oh, that's interesting. So people that are average recreational bettors who are doing that. They're depositing and they're withdrawing, and they're depositing again and withdrawing, and it's sort of a standard sort of process there.
Yeah, I would say most all of them
really?
Deposit and withdraw at least once or twice every single week. Yep.
Right. That's interesting, Pace, because I think in the past, some advice has been that, hey, maybe run up the account, don't withdraw, and kind of stay off the radar.
Yeah, I have quite a few things to say. So I think it's a great topic. Number one. Number two, there's an entire chapter of our masterclass at inplayLIVE dedicated to this topic, right? It matters. And it's evolving. So if anyone ever says, oh, this is what you do, or this is how you do it, it simply may have worked for them at a current point in time. Because my experience with all this stuff, it's the same as anything relating to betting on sports. There's many ways to make money from betting on sports. There's many different ways that will or will not work for you in this department. Now, the betting, hitting a bet and cashing out method is the degenerate betting method. There's no debating about that. Now, if you take that approach to when you are doing things that maybe you do want a little bit more under the radar, that's where you can find yourself in trouble. And the reason for it is, just as a general statement, when you do place a withdrawal on a sports book, you're now putting yourself in a position for a potential review of your account. And I actually have a very close to home situation that happened to me last week with this. I was on just a hell of a run with North Star Bets. They are a regulated book in Ontario. They use Canby lines in Ontario. And if you access their outside of Ontario, Canada site, they're licensed by the Kawanaki or whatever it is, like the Indian tribe. Their lines are the same as Hard Rock. I had just a really kind of bad run there to start. I intentionally did lose some money there, which I do tend to do. You play some of these parlays that we're referencing. And then I actually was like, okay, it's time to play. And I think I got maybe deposited $2,000. I think I ran it up to about $12,000. I lost that $12,000. And you might be like, holy shit, 12 grand. Well, the thing is in the grand scheme of my unit sizing, it was just like, hey, maybe it was only one or two bets, and I'd really scaled aggressively in that account, and went on to lose that money. I personally believe that gave their trading team, whomever, the confidence that if I play there, eventually I will lose. Losing that $12,000. I kind of gave myself a bit of a reckless image there. Okay, I proceeded to run my next $2,000 deposit up to $70,000. Now, they limited me not on a sport, but on one specific market in football, where I was like, okay, they're finally starting to catch on. $70,000, I've made a lot of money betting on sports, but getting any account to 70,000, in my opinion, now is very difficult to do. And that was kind of like a banner account. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a big number.
And I was kind of just like, you start playing these mind games with yourself when you aren't necessarily on like a regulated book. Yes, again, they're regulated in Ontario, but this is not their Ontario site. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try a withdrawal. So I processed a withdrawal, took my balance down from 70,000 to 60,000. So 99999 to avoid FinTrack.
Yeah.
Right. And the withdrawal processed, I want to say, within 30 minutes. And I was like, oh, that's such a nice feeling, because we all know how, that can not be the case with a lot of these books that we use. And then I'm like, okay, well, the account's still in good order. I just can't bet this one market. Let's light it up tomorrow and keep it going. Go to bet $1 bets, right? Had I have not made that move, who's to say how much further I could have gone? They were letting me spin in $5,000 bets on that account. So there isn't necessarily an advantage to withdrawing. It's how you do it. It's when you do it. It's why you do it. It's where you do it. Now, when you bring up the late night stuff, the reason why I laugh so hard is because if I rewind the tape to my early 20s, I can remember being out in downtown Vancouver at a nightclub, 12 West, and going, hey, dude, there's some freaking handball on right now. Do you want to play some bets at the bar? And what we were doing was we were betting. We didn't know the teams. We didn't know the players. We didn't know anything. We were betting on the team that just scored in handball to be the next team to score, which, if you know the sport at all, they pretty much score on every possession. And it would be like $10 or $20 bets, degenerate betting. And I would lose money. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I was making a bunch of money. No, I'd lose a bunch of money. But it was happening at like 2 a.m. Pacific time, 5 a.m. Eastern time. So when you said that, I'm like, geez, that's interesting. And, there are definitely ways that you can do this kind of stuff where you can, slip under the radar and make yourself look like a degenerate.
John, you ever gonna wake up in the middle of the night to bet handball or something else overseas? What other weird sports are there? I don't know, badminton. Pretty soon, I'm sure they'll have pickleball in the menu.
Yeah. You can bet some esports, some Korean, Chinese leagues. There's a lot of that. You can actually get a lot of money on some of those on some books. So yeah.
The thing is, Shane, is this article makes it seem like there is a solution. There's not a solution. Okay. No. There's only a longer leash. Yeah. And there's geolocation software that is figuring out where you are. So to a pin, precise location where you go, Jane Smith from Saskatchewan's in downtown Vancouver at Andrew's apartment, they know it. And I know they know it because no matter what level of, this sort of buttering or priming that happens on the account, they're still, taking action on it very quickly in a lot of cases. So that brings up a whole other set of strategies. Do you have certain accounts that you only use when you're not at home? How much loss are you willing to take on an account before you absolutely let it rip on them? How much are you betting on each bet, right? So like, are you flying under the radar at the $100 level, at the $1,000 level? Are you perceived as a whale at the $10,000 level where they want you? Or are you more likely to get limited? There is no answer to any of those questions because it completely depends on the sports book. It completely depends on your history with the sports book, your location, the list goes on and on and on, right? So I think for more than anything, it's just people being aware of these things so that they can recognize, okay, there might be a better way for me to do this, but it still is inevitable.
Yeah. One way that, might help in this whole process of getting a longer leash is taking some long shot odds and taking a shot on something that might be kind of out there or something that maybe other people aren't really thinking about, and it's hey, and then maybe you hit it, but maybe even hitting it doesn't hurt you that much with the book. And, it still keeps you in the good graces because, hey, at least they're betting on that 30-1, long shot dog play. And I'm bringing it up because, John, you do this kind of thing. You really sort of can dial into futures and maybe some odd sort of pregame plays that are super long shot plays, but you do it from a place that is very sort of meticulous and data driven and analytical. So can you give us a little insight into maybe some of these plays that maybe you've taken lately, maybe some that you've hit, and what is it that you're looking for?
Yeah, sure. So, I do a lot of futures modeling. I make a lot of my own lines, and I basically forecast out what those lines are going to be for the whole season. I do this for college football, NFL, NBA, and so I'm able to spot inefficiencies in a market and exploit those. And you can either do that and just try to hold on to the bet and hope it hits. Like you said, some cases, these are extreme long shots where if I just hit one in my lifetime, it'll pay for me betting that every year and then some, right? And then other cases, they're 4-1, 5-1, but I think they should be 2-1, 3-1, those kinds of things. And those you expect to actually win a couple every year, right? So last NBA season we hit Clippers to win that division. We hit the Thunder to win their division, and some of those were paying like 7-1, right? So we hit. We had Shea Gilgeous-Alexander to win the MVP at 25-1 before the season, and at one point he was the favorite towards the end of the season and came in second in the voting. So we're gonna win those every now and then, and it's gonna pay for a lot of the losses. So I do think some of those bets have value in your account when betting them. I think in general, if you're winning a lot of money on futures, it's probably no better than winning a lot of money live or even pregame. Doing, anytime you're just winning a lot, they're not going to like that. But when you're betting a lot of long shots, it's a good chance you're just going to lose all of them for a long time. And I also think they like, they have your money and they can invest your money and do what they want with it for 4 to 6 months, right? So I will say the very first account I ever had limited was Twin Spires when they were open here, and it was for betting Julius Randle to win the MVP, which he definitely did not. Probably one of the worst bets I've ever made, but they clearly thought that if I was betting that, I must know something. Turns out I did not. He just happened to fit my model that year, so I liked the 100-1 odds I was getting, but he didn't win. So you definitely can get limited, but there's a lot of value. I mean, I think we're on a couple pretty good long shots so far for college football futures this year. Some of them don't look that great. Small bets, like we bet North Carolina to make the playoff at 40-1. But part of that was just because, like I said earlier, inefficiency in a market. So they were 25-1 to win their conference. Well, if they win the ACC, they make the playoff. So why are they 40-1 to make the playoff if that's included with the other bet, right? So that doesn't look good. Their quarterback got hurt in the first game of the season. He's out for the year. But then we have James Madison to win their conference at 8-1. They're 3-1 right now. We have them to win their division at 3-1. So a lot of good value that we've got on some of these things. So I just think there's inefficiencies when you're forecasting out things that are going to happen three months from now, and a lot of that is dictated on just where the money is. If they don't have a lot of money on a team, they'll give you a good price because they want that action to balance out and check themselves. So.
All right, John. So let's give the people some examples of some of these wagers that you've kind of taken over the last little bit here. One of them has to do with Shohei Ohtani. Tell us what you were doing with him and how it went.
Right. So tying it all back into our conversation earlier about getting your books ready to start winning. Well, we talked about same game parlays, some, long shots, trying to lose money, trying to look square. Shohei Ohtani is he's definitely the most famous baseball player right now, the most talked about. He had that 50-50 game where he was the first player ever to steal 50 bases, hit 50 home runs in a single season. And he had like the greatest single performance in a game offensively, I think, ever. If you go by, Baseball Reference, I think they have a stat that's called like expected runs added in a game or something like that, and it was the highest ever in recorded baseball stats. So I think he by himself added like 10 runs above an average replacement player in that game. So pretty incredible stuff. So I just, it was like I had a couple a couple new books I opened, and I started just parlaying Ohtani props together because he was on an incredible streak. So I was parlaying, home runs, stolen bases, RBIs, total bases, hits, just a bunch of walks, just any way Ohtani could do damage to the other team. I was just kind of stitching them together. The most fun one, obviously, is the home run, stolen base parlay, because unlike all of the other offensive stats in a game, a stolen base can't be gotten with a home run, right, in the same at
Right.
bat. So
Yeah.
they're essentially conflicting. So oftentimes when you parlay things that are negatively correlated, you get an odds boost on a same game parlay. It's one way to actually try to extract some value out of same game parlays. So betting an underdog to win, but taking their team total under for a game is another one. So it's just the ways you can win. But so I was, he was on such an incredible heater that I bet this every day with him. Like I said, like a lot of different combinations of this stuff, and it just kept winning every day. He would have like 3 hits, 2 stolen bases, a home run, like 5 RBIs. And so at first, one of the accounts that I had was elevated into like a VIP status because I was throwing away hundreds of dollars on same game parlays and other sports. And I was betting this Ohtani parlay, and I won there, and I won several $1,000s on it, and then I won again, and then I won again, and they kept giving me these profit boosts. So I'm betting this thing that he's doing almost every game. Like he's doing it every other game or every 3 games, and I'm getting it at 14-1 times 50% extra or 30% or 20% or whatever the
Wow.
boosts are, and I'm hitting it like every other day. And so they actually limited my account. So at first I was doing what they thought was amazing square behavior, and it just so happened that it won. Which is, also something that I was going to bring up earlier in the limiting discussion, where a lot of times players, even casual bettors might accidentally find themselves doing something that is an incredibly high ROI play in the moment and get accidentally limited, though the average person might not know because maybe they don't bet more than $100, right? So they wouldn't even know that they were limited. But it's just funny how even when you do all of the behaviors that they want you to do on betting the squarest player and the squarest thing that's going on right now in sports, they still come down on you when you take them for what they deem to be too much money, I guess. But it was a fun little run there with Shohei, and now I think maybe those parlays will pay even better in the playoffs when the totals are lower. So I'm excited to maybe just keep rolling with them.
Okay. So we're going to be riding the Shohei wave through the playoffs.
That's right.
Awesome. Love it. Okay. You got another example for us. This one coming from the NFL. Talk to me a little bit about, we were sort of talking offline about the last undefeated team and how, the Detroit Lions were really getting pushed by the sports books to hey, take this bet. I think it was paying, I don't know, maybe plus 500, plus 600, maybe somewhere in that ballpark to take the Lions to be the last undefeated team. And, the hype on the Lions was really high at before the season started. And I'm very happy to say that my Minnesota Vikings are at the top of the division right now.
That's true.
So
yeah.
We'll see who owns the division at the end of the season. But you did something in that vein, but very different.
Yeah. Well, I will say for our members, we did also all take the Lions to be the last undefeated team. There are some reasons for that outside of just the value on the number. But unfortunately, Dan made one too many mistakes in that game and cost them. But I've taken personally the Titans to be the last winless team, which is in my opinion a much more fun bet than the last undefeated team. I took that a couple of weeks ago because the number was basically the same as before the season because they outplayed the Bears in that game in week 1 when they lost, and Will Levis turned the ball over so many times.
Yeah.
So I think there was just they got a little bit of a bump even though they lost the game. And Will Levis is just dreadful, and they're really just not much good to speak of on that team. But the odds just didn't really make any sense, and it was elevated because they have a bye early in the week or early in the season, which is one reason that to have liked that Detroit bet as well. But so the Titans go on bye next week, and right now they're the only team left outside of Jaguars without a win, and even just in week 3. the Jaguars and the Bengals were the only two other teams that didn't have a win, and the Titans lost on Sunday, and both of those teams played on Monday. So there's actually a chance for that bet to cash in 1 week after I bet it, which is pretty amazing. Of course, they both lost, but the Bengals won this week. So and the Jaguars were winning with like 2 minutes left in their game as well. So it should have already cashed that bet. But plus 800 for what I think is maybe the worst team in football to not win a game through week 4 or 5. It's, pretty good. So I'm excited to hopefully keep that alive tonight against the Dolphins.
I love that you're rocking like a Titans sweater there too, yeah. and of course you're coming to us from that state, right?
That's right. This is purely just to support my tax dollars that are going to the new stadium. So yeah,
that's awesome. Well, these bets are they sound like they can pay off. They can also help you keep a book around a little longer, maybe than unless you keep hitting them like you did with Shohei. But in theory, they should help you keep your book around a little bit longer. Do you have any sort of tips or advice for people out there if they wanted to go down this sort of long shot path? I know you said you do a lot of modeling yourself, and you sort of do some origination on your own. But do you have any sort of advice for people out there that maybe aren't doing that kind of thing?
Yeah, I would just say it's there's always, I would say there's money in burning buildings, right? So everybody's running out of the burning building. You should run into the burning building, and a lot of that's something that a lot of people in the investment world will tell you as well, right? Like when everybody tells you a company's failing, that's when you should buy it. And so like the Vikings are 4-0. I might have bet them to miss the playoffs this morning. It's
How
just,
dare you?
It's kind of like, and I have reasons for wanting to do that and projections that I make. But like whenever the hype is great, is the best time to sell. And whenever it's low, it's the best time to buy. So, after week 1, the Steelers, people were, even just going into the season, people were really selling the Steelers, and I took a little bit on their season win total under, but the odds for them to win the division just simply didn't make any sense based on the amount of wins that they were projected to have. Same with actually the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts and the Jaguars had the same preseason win total, but their preseason division odds, the Colts paid an entire unit more. Like they were plus 400 you could get the Colts to win the division. The Jags were like plus 280. Well, why is that the case if they have the same win total? That's just a simple market inefficiency. So sometimes you don't need a model or anything. You can just line up the other odds that the books are giving you and find where something just doesn't make any sense. We do it all the time live, right? When we're looking at, well, what does touchdown pay? Well, why, if they're going to score a touchdown, they're probably going to do it in this quarter. So maybe I should just take the over or something, right? It just, a lot of times the books their algorithms just, they get lazy and they just want to let them do all the work. And they let the money move the line and stuff. And you can find a lot of value there.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because we're talking to you about all these sort of long shot things and these futures and that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, this is sort of just something you kind of do on the side, right? You're still focused. Your main focus is still live betting.
Yes, yeah, and it, futures bets that we made, our most famous community one right now is that we have the Arizona State Sun Devils win total under for the season. I think we have under 4.5. They started 3-0. But in every one of those 3 wins, we were betting them the whole game because they were underdogs and they were winning, and they were winning big. So we made back probably 5 times what I bet on that under in those 3 games. And oh, by the way, the under's still live. They might not win another game. You never know. So you just have to pretend like you don't have bets when you start betting live and just play the cards that you're dealt.
Love it. The forks. Yeah, we made some money off the forks. That was a lot of fun, but maybe no more fun or winning off the forks anyway. And you can still hit your under. I love it. We'll get it all for the scoop. All right, Pay. So what do you think about these kind of what some people might call crazy bets that John is placing here?
Well, I don't necessarily think they're crazy bets, so I'll disagree with that right off the hop. But I want to go back to the Shohei Ohtani thing. So John's betting these Shohei Ohtani same game parlays. In one account, he's looking like a recreational player, and another account he's getting clipped. The simple reality is you're just going to get clipped if you win money. We haven't even gone into getting clipped when you didn't win money because they didn't like the pattern of the way that you played. When sports betting got regulated, there was this big article on DraftKings about a guy who hit this crazy parlay and then got limited after, and he was a recreational player that just happened to hit a multi-$100,000 parlay. So imagine you're sitting in Las Vegas. Close your eyes or just look at my screen. Right? And you hit a jackpot on a slot machine. And they're like, sir, here's your money, and we need you to leave and never come back. That's essentially what some of the sports books are doing with people. And I'm not referencing John here, obviously. But that is what they're doing in a lot of cases. You hit some big parlay, you're out of here. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? That is so stupid. Okay, back to the Ohtani thing. You are making these bets that are the most square public bets imaginable. They happen to win, and you are kicking them off your site. At least give the player some sort of leash to keep trying something. Change the odds. Oh, this is the whole point. Scott said this last week. Oh, he took plus 10. Okay, we better move the line to plus 9.5. Oh, he still likes plus 9.5. We better move it to plus 9. Okay, he doesn't like it anymore. Let's leave it at plus 9, right? So Shohei makes sense at 20 to 1 for him. Let's move it to 15. He likes it at 15. Let's move it to 10. He likes it at 10. Let's move it to 6. He's not betting it anymore. Let's keep it at 6. Where is this common sense in this industry? It is unbelievable. Okay, some of the other bets that John's making, I've been a part of them. They're great. And I think that it's important to understand when we talk about some of these picks, whether it's the Titans, whether it's, the Forks, the under on wins, I think we also might have a little bit on them to make the playoff at this point too, which I think we probably might end up losing both of those. John was a successful sports bettor before he joined inplayLIVE because of this modeling and because of some of the things that he's going to do. So you might tune in and be like, oh, this guy's awesome. By the way, he's going to be on hopefully like for 5-6 minutes where we do a menu rundown, like, hey, a quick menu rundown. He's not giving out picks, guys. What it is it's information. What you do with that information as a sports bettor is always going to be up to you. How are you going to deploy your bankroll knowing that you might get limited? How are you going to make a decision for tomorrow for your next account, wherever that may be, to make sure that you do get more money out of it? Are you going to rush to some of the bets that he just mentioned and see the lines of them and bet them now, knowing that he might be ahead or behind on some of them, right? Like, it simply is information. We're not going to be here, touting these picks. Now, with that, John, I think it's really cool to just run through a menu. You and I do this sometimes on calls, and we're not making picks, but you do look at some of the NFL lines as they first come out. And we did that last week, and we're obviously never going to be perfect, but you look at some of these lines early on. We've got the Bucks on Thursday Night Football, underdogs to Atlanta. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. What is the line right now on that one?
2.5 for Tampa Bay. They are on the road, and Kirko has been heating up. But is that something where you have any information on?
Yeah. So, Thursday nights is typically a good spot for the home team just because of the low rest and the travel. So I actually do make that. I think the 2.5 side of that is a pretty good line. And I think so the books, I mean, the Bucks just had a really good week against the Eagles, and the Falcons kind of looked like crap against another
and if I'm teasing that line, I'm taking the Bucks because I got the 8.5 side, and that's where I like it. We're going to London this week with the Jets Vikings. Near and dear to the inplayLIVE members' hearts is the extraordinarily long live streams where we go Saturday 9 a.m. Pacific to 11:30 p.m. Pacific, and then we wake up 6:30 a.m. Pacific, and then we go straight till 8:30 p.m. Pacific. The Jets are underdogs in London, playing the 4-0 Shane's Vikings are now 4-0. Unbelievable.
Let's go, Starnold.
Yeah. Starnold. John, anything there?
I like that as the Jets side of that as a teaser leg for sure. Get that 2.5 up to 8.5. It's a low total game. I think it's around 40. I think those London games are just weird games. Like they'd find a way to just be low scoring and kind of gross. So I think getting the teaser there is good.
Separate thing, and again, we're not good pregame bettors. Well, when I say we, I make up for all three of us at once. When you have a low total and you can tease a line above 7, usually that is a good spot because of the fact that the books aren't projecting a lot of scoring. It means it's harder to cover. Dolphins -1 at the Patriots.
Man, that's a gross game. I actually kind of just want to see how Huntley plays. He actually had some good games in Baltimore when he was on that. When he stepped in for Lamar a couple of years ago, or last year. I just kind of want to see how he plays. Honestly, that might be a good spot to take Dolphins because the Patriots are truly dreadful.
Yeah, he was a really serviceable backup last year.
I think when you go through a menu, it's really important to drop our famous line. Sometimes the best bet is the one that you didn't make. Panthers +3.5 at the Bears.
Oh, the Darnold special. I think that line is just. I think they're trying to sucker people into that 3.5. I really don't. I don't know that I can. I don't know that I could do it.
Colts +3 at the Jags.
Probably, man. Probably the Jags. I think it's this week or never.
God, kill me on those lines. Bills +1.5 at Houston.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. It's probably a good. I mean, you would think it's a good spot to back the Bills after that loss to the Ravens, where they looked pretty bad. I actually make that both of these last couple games we've talked about. I make pretty close to a pick. A lot of these games this week. More than half the games, I think, should be under a field goal, which I think they are. So it's just up there. It's like a good over game, though, for me.
Ravens -2.5 at the Bengals.
It's tough to take a favorite on the road in that division. It seems like the Bengals just haven't looked good. I mean,
might be another good teaser spot. Browns +3 at the Commandos.
I mean, we love the Commanders, so I think the Commanders you have to back until they prove that they're.
I mean, we made a killing on Sunday on the Commandos. I think the whole mindset there is Jaden Daniels might be elite, so bet it until he's not. Raiders +3 at the Broncos.
It's definitely. I think the Raiders are just a better team. Backing Denver at home early in the season is a really good strategy until about week 4. It seems like conditioning and altitude doesn't catch up for the road teams until about week 5. So now we're into week 5. So I kind of like the Raiders there.
Cardinals +7.5 at the Niners.
Oof. Man, the Niners looked really good against a really terrible New England team. I probably make that line about that. It's tough to. I mean, a division matchup over 7 points. Sometimes I think you just got to take it.
Will be a lot of teasers on the Niners, essentially money line or -1.5.
The Cardinals money line would do the books some good. That's for sure if they won that game.
Totally. Giants +6 at the Seahawks.
I want to see how Seattle looks tonight. Whenever betting whenever looking ahead on a game that a team hasn't played on Monday night, it's like if Seattle beats the Lions, then that line moves to 8, right? If they lose, you get maybe 4.5 or something. So
here's a game that I love to lose some money on because anything I do in the category that we're doing right now, I just lose. Rams +3.5 at home, taking on the Packers. Right away, that screams to me Rams +9.5 on a teaser, but go ahead, John.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something weird about the Rams. I was looking at their futures odds right now. I mean, they're like 11-1 to win their division, and just some really strange numbers. It to me signals that there's a lot of injury news that I don't understand, or like some injuries to key players. They're like Cup or worse than they advertise, and there's people that know more than I do because those numbers are just totally off of what I make. So,
Cowboys +2 at Steelers.
Man, Man, I just hate backing the Steelers as a favorite. I just think that they're a much worse. I think the Cowboys are a good team. They've had some execution problems this year. I just can't take the Steelers. I mean, I was all over the Colts this week, so it'll probably be another spot to fade Tomlin as a favorite.
Right. And then final one is Monday Night Football, the Saints +5 at the Chiefs, which I think that line will be moving in the Chiefs' favor by the time kickoff hits.
I agree. I have that number as a much bigger number. The Chiefs tend to struggle covering bigger numbers. They did it this week against the Chargers, despite not ever really winning or leading in the game. But I don't like Carr on the road outdoors at all.
Right. So I just want to say the reason why we bring these up is because a few things. Number one, we make a tremendous edge on live betting that doesn't exist pregame. Typically the best pregame bettors are going to get a 2-3% edge. Our ROI across all sports is closer to 15% for the year. And when you go through a menu, which a lot of people do, and they bet everything or they bet a whole bunch of legs, you're just adding value to the sports books and not to yourself. So you bring up a guy like John who models all this kind of stuff, and you hear him go, for most of the games, right? So there's a couple where he's like, yeah, I like this game. They aren't picks. It's just information. So, it's been a great NFL season so far, and hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to doing this menu rundown because I feel like I just picked up a whole bunch of information that, just has me more equipped and feeling sort of better armed heading into the next week of NFL. And it's nice to sort of just get it on the brain right away on a Monday when we're recording this, but even early, whether that's you're listening on a Tuesday or a Wednesday when the episode comes out, or Thursday morning before the Thursday nighter. This is just great information to have. So John, looking forward to having you make a regular weekly appearance and do a menu rundown with us.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Sounds fun.
Awesome. All right. Well, it's been a lot of fun chatting with you guys this week. So to you, Pace, John, all the sports bettors around the world tuning in, till next week, keep beating those bucks. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Lines. Remember to like, download, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Have a betting story or want to be featured on our podcast? Drop a note in the comments below. And if you want to join in Play Live, use promo code Behind the Lines.